impeccable symmetry, superior intelligence, incredibly efficient bipedal movement, eyes that accurately analyze multiple colors. The human body seems so perfect that it feels as if it were designed by an omnipotent God. However, with just a brief examination, it's obvious that our human anatomy is riddled with flaws. Do you see a circle and cross here? Let's conduct an experiment. Cover your right eye with one hand and stand about 50 centimeters away from a picture. Then, while focusing on a cross, try moving closer to it, around 30 centimeters away from the image. You might find that the circle on the left disappears. This point is your blind spot. Normally, our two eyes complement each other, so we don't notice our blind spot. However, when you cover one eye like this, the blind spot appears where the image of an object isn't formed. You might think that since no image is formed in the blind spot, you should see something like a black spot. However, the reason we don't experience this phenomenon is because our brain compensates for this gap, filling in the blind spot with the surrounding color, in this case, white. In actuality, this kind of blind spot is not unique to humans. All vertebrates have them. Inside our eyes, the retina is densely packed with photoreceptor cells that detect light. These cells convert light into electrical signals, which then travel along the optic nerve connected to them, reaching the brain. However, the problem is that the photoreceptor cells in vertebrates face the opposite direction of incoming light, and the optic nerve is located inside the retina. Because of this, as shown in the illustration, the nerve bundles are gathered in one place to allow passage through the retina. This point is known as the optic disc, where a blind spot occurs due to the absence of photoreceptor cells. It's pretty inefficient, isn't it? On the other hand, the eyes of invertebrates like squid and octopus are far more efficient. The photoreceptor cells in invertebrates all face the direction of incoming light, and the connected optic nerves extend outside the retina, directly connecting to the brain. In other words, because photoreceptor cells are distributed throughout the retina, there is no blind spot. You might be wondering, why did our eyes evolve in this way? As you know, evolution does not always lead to the best outcome. It's merely a process of gradual changes from the basic framework inherited from ancestors. The eyes of the earliest vertebrates likely had their photoreceptor cells oriented in the opposite direction. This fundamental structure has remained unchanged, with only minor modifications in shape leading from their present form. And the eye is not the only organ in the human body that seems to be poorly designed. Inside our faces, we have cavities called sinuses filled with air and mucus, which play a role in trapping dust, bacteria, and viruses that enter when we breathe. When mucus accumulates, it flows down the tube connected to the sinuses, reaching the throat and eventually getting digested in the stomach. The occasional act of sniffing that we do is actually the process of swallowing the mucus from these sinuses. And the accumulation of mucus and resulting inflammation in these sinuses is called sinusitis. Interestingly, it is only humans who are prone to developing inflammation in their sinuses, making them susceptible to colds and sinusitis. The reason for this is because of the sinuses located below the eyes. In the upper sinuses, mucus flows down due to gravity, right? Conversely, the sinuses below the eyes are designed such that their ducts connect upwards, making it difficult for mucus to drain and prone to accumulation in the sinuses. Therefore, inflammation occurs frequently in this area. Dog sinuses are not designed this way. Their structure allows mucus to move easily down to the throat, making them less prone to sinusitis compared to humans. So why are our sinuses designed so poorly? The long-snouted mammalian ancestors all had efficient sinuses, but some of them evolved into primates that increasingly relied on vision rather than smell, leading to the shortening of their snouts. Ultimately, humans, who emerged last among the apes, ended up with the worst sinuses of all. Not only that, but human throats are also terribly designed. This is where the pathways for air and food enter, sharing a portion of their routes. Therefore, when we breathe, air not only enters the lungs, but also passes through the esophagus to the stomach, sometimes resulting in flatulence. On the other hand, when we eat, the epiglottis closes like this to prevent food from entering the lungs. Sometimes, if the epiglottis doesn't close properly and food enters the lungs, we cough to expel it, a process we call choking. In other words, humans cannot swallow and breathe at the same time. You probably can't even swallow saliva and breathe simultaneously very well. This means that unlike snakes or birds, whose respiratory and digestive tracts are completely separated, we cannot swallow large pieces of food in one gulp. If we did the same, our airway would be blocked, leading to suffocation. According to evolutionary biologist Professor Lee Sang-hee, the reason our throats evolved in such an inefficient way is because of our use of spoken language. Chimpanzees, which cannot speak, have a higher larynx, while in adult humans, the larynx descends, expanding the pharyngeal cavity and enabling the production of a variety of sounds. Thus, our throats are shaped to allow speech, at the risk of choking. If a god had designed the human body, wouldn't he have designed it to prevent choking while still enabling speech? And speaking of the larynx, the recurrent laryngeal nerve that connects the brain and larynx is also the epitome of inefficiency. Instead of directly connecting from the brain to the larynx, the human recurrent laryngeal nerve loops around the aorta near the heart before connecting to the brain. And giraffes have an even longer one. Their recurrent laryngeal nerve loops over 4.6 meters. Can you imagine how long they must have been in the giant sauropod dinosaurs of the Mesozoic era? Anyway, transmitting signals is highly inefficient with such a long nerve. If there was a god who designed this, surely he wouldn't have done it this way. The inefficiency of the recurrent laryngeal nerve has its origins in our ancestors and their evolution. In ancient fish, this nerve was an organ connecting the brain and gills. At that time, this nerve ran almost straight from the spine to the gills, passing between large blood vessels. However, as some fish evolved, their necks and chests separated, and the heart moved away from the brain, causing the nerve to stretch into a long loop out of necessity. This represents the traces of an evolutionary history marked by a series of makeshift adaptations. And there are even more examples of flawed designs in the human body. Humans have disadvantages in metabolizing nutrients. A prime example is vitamin C. Vitamin C is essential for collagen synthesis. Without it, we suffer from scurvy, where collagen is depleted, and cells, substrates, and tissues break down, leading to bleeding from the skin. Interestingly, among vertebrates, it is only humans and other primates, excluding guinea pigs and Indian fruit bats, who need to obtain vitamin C through their diet. Most vertebrates on Earth can synthesize vitamin C in their livers. That's why you don't need to feed dogs, cats, or cattle oranges or tangerines. The inability of humans to synthesize vitamin C is due to the malfunction of the GULO gene, which is essential for producing the enzyme required for its synthesis. It is hypothesized that the gene became non-functional during a period of evolutionary history, when our human ancestors began to consume fruit. Of course, our ancestors who lived millions of years ago in forests where fruits were readily available didn't face major problems due to this genetic fault. But later, when they moved out of the forests to grasslands, and as human ancestors like Homo erectus ventured into different climates and continents, they often suffered from vitamin C deficiency. Furthermore, from early civilizations through the Middle Ages to more recent times, when fruits were not as widely available as they are today, there were many cases of people suffering from scurvy. In addition, due to our bipedal mode of walking, unlike quadrupedal animals, humans are more susceptible to conditions like hernias, and our pelvises have narrowed, leading to significant risks during childbirth. Taking all these factors into consideration, it's hard to claim that our bodies are the work of divine design, but are, in fact, filled with vulnerabilities that are a byproduct of evolution. We have merely managed to survive by somehow coping with these imperfections over the years. Perhaps the beauty of the human body is not in its perfection, but because it embodies the history of hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Science is a window to the world, and this has been Science Dream. Thank you for watching.